doing it different. I'm trying to build an engagement, gotta keep working and putting out content. They say this was the ending, it's only the beginning. Watch me get away with murder, about to make a killing. I ain't stopping, I ain't quitting, I ain't giving up for nothing. Someone come and tell these motherfuckers I'm just getting started. Someone tell these motherfuckers I'm just getting started. Now fuck with the drama. I'm trying to fuck up some commas. I'd rather make me some dollars. I'm doing good, just like my karma. Two-face, I can't trust that. You spread lies, I state facts. Heard the songs, they all whack. Telling these rappers to fall back.
Woo! Hello, 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 hello. Good afternoon, Joe. Good afternoon. I like how it's like spade, joker, spade, pyramid. It doesn't show on here. Johnny Silverhand, thank you for becoming a member. Woohoo! All right. I hope everyone is having a really good afternoon. I'm having a good day. It is Saturday, so, I've been hanging out with my little one all morning and I had a self-care Saturday. Going to continue that after the stream. I get some cleaning done and whatnot this weekend. Well, like every day, but like I'm still doing spring cleaning stuff, so I want to get that going because we're heading on to the end of spring. I want to be done. So, yeah, I hope that you're all having a great day. And today we are going to be talking about some of the biggest scams in history, corporate scams, most specifically. I thought it would be fun. I found this really great article, so we're just going to go through it today. Because, when we're talking about scams, it's good to discuss the worst ones. I want to dive deep into some of these in future, so I figured it would be really cool to just kind of do, I guess, like an intro to them, if you will. An intro to the scams. So I found this amazing article and it said the biggest corporate, right? And they are the frauds. The frauds. So this should be fun for us to go through. Get off my screen, ad. Did you know that ad blocker only works for like some ads, and then the ones that pop up on the screen for some reason are still popping up for me, and I don't know why. So it says investors can learn something from these fraud cases. I think we can all learn something from these, even if we're not investors. It's just good to know. Good to know. So it says perhaps your company can't cover the loans you took out in order to get things up running. Maybe a competitor is undercutting you. Or customers just aren't interested as they once were. You're running out of options, but there's still one on the table: fraud. Because that should be an option. No, but corporate frauds do happen all the time. More than we actually know. They get caught eventually, but just trust, it's going on all the time. So when it's revealed, it can have serious consequences. Which they should. You should have serious consequences if you're running a corporate scam, especially since when you're running a corporate scam, there's usually a lot of victims involved. It's not only the company, but it tends to be like the people that are using the company, things like that, So you have a lot of victims of a scam. Corporate scams probably hurt more people than any other scams. And when it happens with the biggest companies on the market, the consequences can be catastrophic. The history of white-collar fraud didn't begin with Charles Ponzi's famous scheming in the 1920s, which we're going to be getting into themselves. So here are a set of the biggest ones over the last 4 decades. And, I think it will be fun. Let's see what they say the 7 biggest scams are for us. Because, again, I think it will be really interesting. We can always learned something from these scams and how to prevent to a long history of corporate fraud is Wirecard. Has anyone heard of Wirecard before? Thank you, Johnny. It takes some time. Then run away. Run away from all the scams. No, I don't want to become Jesus Christ. So Wirecard was actually a German electronic payments company. And they seem to grow pretty steadily over the last 20 years or so. But all was not as it seemed. As auditors discovered a few weeks ago when they noticed a roughly $2 billion hole in Wirecard's books. So like $2 billion hole. That's a lot of money. Not just like a couple thousand, not even just a couple million, which is still a lot of money, $2 billion. Now, my thing with this is always like, how do they think they get away with $2 billion? Like, eventually somebody is going to be like, what happened to this $2 billion? Why is there just this hole of $2 billion just missing, just gone? Like, I'm always trying to get into the mind of the scammer. Like, what were they thinking? Did they think that they would be able to get away with this? Did they think nobody would question it? $2 billion is a lot of money. Probably should have just started with 2 million. Maybe they would have gotten away with it for longer. Who knows? So apparently that money just didn't exist at all. At all. So they figured that this company was actually falsifying their financial records, especially to the shareholders, right? Because when you're a shareholder in a company, you're supposed to be getting your investment back. And if you invest in a company as a shareholder and nothing is coming back to you, or you're not at least seeing that the company is growing and doing is like really well, you might pull out. You might not want to be an investor in the company anymore. So when companies sometimes start going under, this thing can happen. They'll start falsifying their financial records to show the shareholder, look, our company is actually doing really well. You should still hold shares. And apparently, this money just did not exist. So on June 23rd, CEO Marcus Braun was arrested this last year. They declared insolvency 2 days later, right? Because $2 billion doesn't exist. The chances of them being able to now all of a sudden coming up with this $2 billion, it's just not going to happen. So what ends up happening is the company basically and apparently the chief operating officer just took off. Just peace out. Peace out. And he's still missing. Still missing. The good thing about this, apparently fall from grace, there's a good thing, is that the likelihood the German government will take a hard look at corporate governance and strengthen financial regulations from here on out. So because this happened, the government is now redoing their laws and making it so that it will be harder in future in Germany for companies to be able to do this. Apparently, before this happened, they did not have as strict of financial regulations, which is kind of why they think that this company got away with doing this for so long with $20 billion just not even there. So that's the good news. The good news is with a lot of these kind of like huge corporates, they change the law, because we're like, oh no, how did that happen? Now we need stricter laws. The downside is that sometimes that can affect companies that aren't doing scams, because to have the stricter financial regulations can be kind of annoying to companies. Like, policy, procedure stuff. It's never fun, but I mean, it's a fair price to pay if you want to be a little bit annoyed as a company owner to make sure that people can't get frauded. The next one we have, number 2 on the list, is Luckin Coffee. I had actually never heard of this one before. This is one that I had never heard of. I had heard of the Wirecard one, knew a little bit about that. Never heard of this one at all. So Luckin Coffee is actually from China. And it's a coffee company that had rocketed from an initial public offering price of just more than $20 in May of 2019 to highs of more than $50 a share by January 2020. So it jumped about $30 a share, which is a big growth, especially for such a new company. I mean, it took not much time for them to get there, like 7 months. Then it was revealed that the high growth upstart was not actually growing. It wasn't growing at all. And on April 2nd, they opened an investigation and they revealed the company had fabricated $310 million in sales during 2019 by selling vouchers for coffee in bulk to companies with ties to its chairman. So because they were doing it in bulk, they could kind of like hide it a little bit better. Do you know what I mean? At the same time, they even allegedly created a fictitious employee to purchase $140 million in raw materials from suppliers. So they literally just created a whole fake person. They were like, we're just going to make up a person, which that in itself is actually kind of creepy. I mean, think of them actually making up a person. Hello, Christina. I love you. I miss you. Thank you for being my amazing mod. Joe says, China. No, never would happen. Not in corporate China. Why? They have quite a few scams out there actually that are similar to this. So yeah, they actually, the funny thing about this one to me is that they literally made up a person. I mean, usually when these are frauding, they make up their earnings. They'll make up like their investments. That's been done too, where they've lied about having certain investors. But this is the first time I've ever actually heard of them making up an employee. Now, I have heard of them making customers. There have been some companies that have like faked customers. Of course, you can like fake sales and stuff, and that's happened before. It's also fraud. You do get in trouble. But the funny thing about this one is they literally just made up an employee. So I'm like thinking in my head, like, how did that work? They would have had to have come up with like a SIM card for this person. Because if this person is buying raw materials, like they went into a lot of work to create this employee. Do you know what I mean? Like they would have had to come up with like a credit card for this person, some kind of background for this person. Like it's crazy to me. They probably put more work into that than they did into selling the coffee. And maybe if they had taken some of that work that they put into creating this fictitious employee and put it towards how to do their sales, they would have been more successful. I'm just saying, because it sounds like a lot of work. And sometimes I'm like, why are you guys putting so much work into frauding? If you put that much work into actually doing the business right, you would be successful. And this is a great example of that. So it says the 1-2 punch sent shares of Luckin plummeting down to $1.39. And that was like again in May of 2020. So in May of 2019, it just dropped to not even $2. Not even $1.50. So that's why you don't do that. Shares remain depressed as not yet really gone under, although like they haven't shut it down. They haven't been like, oh, we frauded everyone. We're going to shut the company down. They're just kind of like, we're still here. We're still doing good. We're going to sell all the coffee. Don't worry. We're going to do this. And hoping that their shares will rise up. Now, I don't think it, because once you pull something like this, I think as someone that deals with shares myself, like I would not ever invest in this company. After it's already been caught for like this, people are going to want to invest in it. Even at $1.39 a share, you're going to be like, they made up a whole employee and made up $310 million in sales. So the funny thing about this is that they probably would have gotten away with it, except they did their taxes. And when you do your taxes, you have to prove, right? You have to prove your sales and all that stuff. So it looks like that's when they got caught. They could not provide the appropriate receipts for all these sales that they made. And then, of course, when they do taxes for a fake person buying the materials, the IRS, or, well, I guess this is in China. So whoever it is, if you guys know what that's called, you know, I don't know what they have in China, but I'm assuming they also have like a tax agency or like Canada. We have Canada Revenue Agency. So I'm like thinking in my mind, like maybe their tax place was just like, this person doesn't exist. We have no previous tax information for them. Their SIN card seems off. What is going on? And that's kind of how they got caught. You know, the company starts to look into it because they would have had to, let them know that they have this amazing employee that's purchasing all their stuff. And I tried to look in to find out if they also paid this employee, but I couldn't find any information to see if they like falsely paid him. It doesn't really say much about that, but that would be interesting if they also like provided this fake employee with a fake paycheck. That's a whole lot of fraud. And they could, depending on the laws in China, they could face being charged with fraud. It just seems like for some reason China isn't as on top of this company as if they would have been in the US. They would have been shut down right now and charged. So I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen with this, because like I said, they're still kind of trying to run. They're treading on water here. So I'm like, watch, in a few years we'll hear about them going under because they messed everyone up. Wells Fargo. A lot of you may have heard about this, especially if you are watching a lot of like the MLM guru fraud on the list was committed by C-suite executives. All right. The case of Wells Fargo is a bit different, right? So to be fair, you always got to be fair. It's clearly the fault of company higher ups that employees at Wells Fargo were given impossibly high sales goals that rose like clockwork from 2002 to 2016. I don't know if you've ever worked in sales. I have worked in sales. It can be extremely stressful, and you do have sales goals. You oftentimes, when you're working in sales, you have to meet a certain threshold in order to keep your job. You can lose your job if you do not make the amount of sales that the company wants you to make. When I worked in sales, we had people coming and going like every single month. There's a huge turnaround rate for it, right? Because some people just can't sell things. So what this company did is they basically gave their employees an impossible sales like ceiling. They were like, you have to sell at least, I don't know, like $40,000 worth a month. And it seemed impossible to them. So then what happened is it kept rising and rising. They had obviously a lot of salespeople that were doing decent, that were, staying within the amount they were supposed to sell. so that they could keep their jobs. But as you know, as the quotas go up, employees get desperate to do things. And I've seen that before working in sales, where someone's been a little bit to do their job, so they kind of like do something not exactly ethical. They sell to someone maybe they shouldn't, but they really need that sale, so they're just like, I just need to get this done. I've seen like that happen before, just a little bit of this. But with this, since it was a bank as well, right? It got really fraudy. It was a lot of fraud because they actually started to open up fake accounts under the customer's names. So if a customer opened a savings account at the bank, employees might open a credit card under that customer's name as well. Now, the person would not know that they have a credit card in, like, with Wells Fargo. They would have no clue. They would just kind of put it under like, oh yeah, this customer also got a credit card. But the customer had no clue. So of course the short office soared, right? So there were 2 million fake accounts. So it looked like they were doing amazing. All of a sudden, sales are skyrocketing. 2 million new accounts. Fabulous for business, except they're fake. Because then what happens, as we all know, is as time goes on, you get caught. Eventually, they wouldn't see as much activity with this credit card since, the person didn't know they had a credit card. They weren't the ones spending it. The employees would spend a little bit, pay it back, spend a little bit, pay it back. But eventually it got to the point where they couldn't like fake it anymore. So they got caught and they have to pay $3 billion in fines. That's just the fines to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and Department of Justice. And honestly, the bank is still going. It's still a bank. They didn't get shut down. You can still go. I mean, if you want to. I don't suggest it. But you can have Wells Fargo as a bank if you want. So they are not closed down. Hello, Cher. So the funny things, oh, Joe, what'd you say? Hold on. Regular tellers were forced to sell. My wife got out of banking when this type of crap started at her bank, and it wasn't Wells Fargo. See, and that's the thing, is that this has happened at other banks before. And that's why, especially with a bank, the whole minimum sales quota thing kind of scares me. Because it does happen that they start to do things like this to keep their jobs, right? Because if you don't make the sales quota, you lose your job. Most people don't want to lose their jobs, so they're going to do anything they can to meet the sales quota. And that's kind of how you end up with them frauding. I mean, to me, though, again, it's the fault of the bank. Because if the bank had not have made the quotas so freaking high, people wouldn't have felt the need to open up fake accounts to reach this. And you also got to know, like, those higher ups knew what was going on. They had to have. Don't tell me that the employees were tricking the CEOs and they're all sitting there in their boardroom like, oh, wow, we're doing really great in sales. I wonder what got our employees to start busting ass. Like, no. They knew what was going on. And obviously, they were kind of pushing the employees to do this, but this kind of thing has happened. Like, I've worked in sales before, like I said, and I've seen like a very minimum thing. I've seen people sell to people of disabilities. And when I was in sales, you weren't supposed to sell to people with certain disabilities. I've seen it done, where they just kind of took advantage of the person, but it was to reach that sales quota because they were like, if I don't get another sale by the end of the day, I might lose my job. And then the last thing on the phone is somebody who's disabled and they're like, oh, well, I'm making this sale. That kind of thing can happen. Lawn care, phone companies, not as worrisome. Bank, pretty worrisome. You don't want people messing around with your money, open up credit cards in your names, and things like this. So I actually think it's kind of weird that this bank hasn't been shut down. Can we like hashtag cancel Wells Fargo or something? Because that's a lot. And I do feel like it is the fault, like this article says, of the people at the top. They don't tell me they didn't know. And if they tried to put it on the employees, and that's sick. And lesson here is if you are running a sales business, make sure that you make realistic sales quotas for your teams and don't be raising them up and making it so like an impossible feat. Otherwise, things like this is going to happen. And again, it will be more on you than your employees. Sometimes it's on the employees, like in the situation I just said, where the day to get a last sale for his bell. So he, someone with disabilities. That's the fault of an employee because that sales quota, like that guy just kind of sucked. It's just all around sucked. But in a situation like this where the sales quotas way high, you have to blame the higher ups. There's no way, like I said, the employees weren't just doing this. Volkswagen is the next one. And again, you may have heard about this one. Have you guys heard about the Volkswagen? The Volkswagen. Walmart makes every new hire open an account with their bank with the excuse that they want to direct deposit their checks. Even those who have accounts elsewhere have to do it. That's not good. See, now, like, that is a little bit worrisome to me as well, right? Little worrisome because I'm like, you all just trying to get more people to open up at your bank. All right, that's a little fraudy. I'm gonna have to look into that now. Feel like I need to look into that. Yeah, you know what, Joe? Not a lot of people do, and that's what I mean. Not a lot of people can work in sales, and that's why having such high sales quotas can be a little bit worrisome, especially when, you're hiring younger people. Like where I was working, we had a lot of like 19, 20, like I was one of the oldest people there, being in my 30s. So it's like, do they have lots of sales experience? Probably not. For some of them, it was their first job. So when they get told, hey, you have this like sales quota to reach, otherwise you're going to lose your job, they freak out. And sometimes things can, get a little fraudy. Yeah, payroll can direct deposit to any bank, like Sharon says. So I don't know why they're making it like that. I'm definitely going to look into that now. I definitely am. Stay tuned for that. So the next one is the Volkswagen. A lot of people know about this one. It's a pretty famous scam because Volkswagen, very famous car company, So governments around the world test cars to make sure vehicles meet emission standards. Adhering to these standards can be costly for automakers. So Volkswagen came up with a clever idea. I wish they would have put clever in quotations because so we're going to find out it wasn't that clever. The company put a special type of software in about 11 million of its diesel-powered cars to detect when those cars were being tested for emissions and then change the results. Yeah, so they actually created this. I don't even know. How did that work? How did they change the results on the tests? But apparently they came up with a software that can do that. So all of the cars were coming out as meeting the emission standards when they actually weren't meeting the emission standards. And Volkswagen had to have known that they weren't meeting The emission standard lie about them meeting it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why didn't you just meet the standards? Why didn't you just do that? Yes, it's costly, but then you got to be like, well, how much did it cost you to make the software? Install it in the 11 million cars and then pull all that. I bet you it cost almost as much as it would have to just words. And this is why I'm like, nah, clever should be in quotation. Not that clever to me. Waste of money, waste of resources for that, and a fraud, because they got caught in September of 2015, and it ended up being a hell of more money for them because they ended up having to, in the US alone, recall 480,000 vehicles, okay? Which worries me a little bit because I'm like, yo, bro, there were 11 million. So, like, where'd the rest of those cars? Are they out on the roads? Like, little scary. And they ended up having to pay $25 billion in fines, which, again, if they had just put the money and their resources into ensuring that their vehicles met the standard, it would have cost them less. So this is a story of, we're going to try to save money by cutting corners, and then it ends up costing them more money. At the end of the day, they dupe themselves. Kind of funny to me. The CEO, Martin Winterkorn, well, he's a wanker. Winterkorn, messed that right up, resigned as a result. And the company continues to face financial burdens and ongoing litigation risk for its actions to this day. And part of the reason is because, like I said, they only were able to recall 480,000 of the vehicles. So some of these vehicles still out there. So people were driving vehicles without the proper emission standards, and then they would take it in, and then they'd be like, well, yeah, this isn't meeting standards. So they would go to Volkswagen and be like, what the heck? And of course, Volkswagen has to then make that situation right. So it's still happening. Even right now in 2021, some of these cars still being driven, they're still getting in trouble for it. And I don't know if Volkswagen will ever again be able to have the same reputation they did before. I don't know if they'll be able to be Trustwagons. They definitely won't. They definitely trust wagons. I don't know if they'd be able to be trusted again. Like, are you gonna go out and buy a Volkswagen anytime soon after hearing this? I'm not. I'm probably staying very far away from Volkswagens. Cool. Like Marilyn Manson? I love Marilyn Manson. So, yeah, like, they're obviously going to be facing this for a long time. Enron is actually the one that took my grandparents. My grandparents got messed over by Enron. That's probably a very big reason why I am doing the content that I do, is because of Enron messing over my grandparents. On the flip side, those cars are still cleaner than the ones from the 70s and 80s. Do you know what? That's actually probably true. That would be true. Yeah, I don't think we had any standards back then for that, eh? That just came into play in the 90s. Like the later 90s too. You know what I mean? Like, now that I'm thinking of, I don't think we cared about the environment back then at all. So, yeah, I don't even think we had standards. So, we were just pumping diesel out, a lot of really bad stuff that should not be there. So, Enron is probably one of the most famous corporate scams in history. Most people have heard about Enron. Fortunately, my grandparents lost thousands and thousands of dollars investing with Enron. Like, and I mean, like, they lost a good, I think it was around $60,000-$70,000 with Enron. I remember being a kid. I remember my parents trying to tell my grandparents to sell, my grandparents saying no. And then this happened. My grandparents regretted it. And I remember all this happening as a young kid. I was young for this. I mean, I was 10 in 1996. So yeah, I was about 10, 11, 12. This was kind of like happening. And I definitely remember this going down in my own personal family. So this is probably one of the worst scams ever, with probably some of, like, a lot of victims. And most of the victims from the Enron scam, unfortunately, were elderly people. It just happened to be a lot of elderly people invested in this. They used to be called America's Most Innovative Company by Fortune magazine. And they got that title every single year from 1996 till 2001. In 2001, I was 15, like grade 10, and definitely remember this all happening. Enron rode the dot-com wave to superstar status and became the 7th largest company in the US, at least on paper. And this is the problem, right? In reality, it was running a Ponzi scheme. That's what it was doing. So they used mark-to-market accounting to make itself appear more profitable than it actually was. And they would hide all the losses, and they would kind of like get more people to come in and invest so that they could pay off other investors and blah, blah, blah. It ended up running a lot like a Ponzi scheme. So, you know, they got caught, and their stock was actually worth, you know, $90 per share when they were in their prime. And it went down to 65 cents in 4 months. And I remember this happening because my parents were telling my grandparents to sell like right before they dropped. And my grandparents were like, no, we'll be good. It's going to be fine. And then it was very quick. I remember it be like they said, and within 4 months, it was just all of a sudden just done. Like the whole company was just on December 2nd, 2001. A lot of their executives ended up being charged for all kinds of crimes, like all different kinds of fraud. Their auditor, who was Arthur Andersen, you know, ended up facing a lot of issues. And the upside was the passage of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in 2002. And that establishes stricter accounting rules for public companies and makes harsher penalties for those who break them. So again, as with the case with the past ones, this one ended up changing the law, making it so that it would be harder in future for companies to do this. Probably one of the biggest scams in history. And like I said, it had some of, it looked great on paper, toilet paper, Joe says. It look great on paper. Have I ever been scammed? I was in 2 MLM companies, which is how I got that lovely, how I got here onto YouTube. So technically I was scammed. I was lucky though and didn't put a whole bunch of money into mine, and I left pretty even. But the whole thing was a scam. So yeah, if you don't understand what a company does, don't invest in it. That's just good news. Or good news, good advice. Good advice. But this has to be probably like one of the most famous scams. I'm pretty sure everyone has heard about Enron. I'll probably do a video on it. I'm probably going to do a video on each one of these and dive in a little bit deeper. The next one we're going to look at is WorldCom. WorldCom, another one you may have heard of. Very, very popular. You definitely have heard of the company before if you're my age or older. 7, RCI Communications. And that's another telemarketing company. They basically became like the biggest telemarketing company in America when they merged together. They were already 2 companies that were quite big in the telemarketing. They were doing all of the telecommunications, all of it. Like every time you called up, all right, to like talk to some telemarketer, telecommunication person, no matter what it was for, you were probably calling into these companies. So when they merged together, it was a big thing. WorldCom was kind of coming up, and it was kind of like MCI Communications was like, hey, you're coming up as a company. Come and hook on to us, and we'll make a big giant company. So they did that. In 1999, it tried to take over Sprint. So Sprint, if you're not familiar, phone company, internet, cable, all that kind of stuff. And really big company. It would probably be like the USA's version of Bell Canada, because we have Bell as like the big one. I think in the US, Sprint is like the huge one. And again, this would have been one of the largest mergers of companies. Like they wouldn't have ever seen companies so big kind of come together. And it was actually blocked. And I'm sure Sprint was like, why? What's going on? What is happening? And what happened was regulators were actually stalling out the WorldCom shares. It was bad news for the CEO, who was Bernie Ebbers, and he had been funding his side business with more than 365 million WorldCom stock. So he had like this little side business going on, and he was basically stealing money from WorldCom to fund, right? And it was in loans. But it was a scam. So WorldCom shares, of course, fell. And he grew more desperate because, again, he's got his side company going off these shares too. So when the shares fall, that means his side company is not going to be doing too well. So he actually started to lie. As a lot of, basically, that's the story of all these companies, is that they have to lie about how well they're doing, right? So they lied about their capital expenditures to the tune of $3.8 billion. Another like huge number. I'm always like, why do they think they can get away with this? Even if they're making like $500 billion, people are going to notice $3 billion not being there. Like it's a substantial difference. Okay. Someone eventually is going to be like, where is this money? And that's basically what happened. They got discovered in June of 2002. And by the next month, they were in bankruptcy. Now, Ebbers was going to be looking at a 25-year sentence. He was actually supposed to be sentenced last February. However, he ended up dying. So karma got him, I guess. I know, sounds mean, but he was going to jail for a life sentence. It was a huge fraud. Dude was caught, a 25-year sentence. He was older. He was an elderly gentleman, older. So, I mean, no offense, but he probably wasn't going to live through that 25-year sentence anyway. But people were kind of upset that he passed away because those that got taken by this scam, they wanted to see him go to jail. Thank you, Abe, for the super sticker. They wanted to see him go to jail. So it was like, you remember that? Ooh, Monopoly's got banned. See, a lot of people remember these ones. That one you'd remember because it's so big. And a lot of people were angry. You may have heard people were kind of mad he died. It was a little bit funny on social media at that time because people that got taken by this company, the other shareholders and whatnot of the company, were kind of mad that he passed away instead of going and facing his jail sentence. People felt like they didn't really get justice with it. It was interesting to see because, for me, I would have been like, woohoo, guys, gone, yeah. But people were like, no, we wanted to see that guy go to jail because he hadn't actually been like to jail yet. He went to jail for like a night, got out on bail, they sentenced him, and then like they usually do with rich people, they let you back out after you've been sentenced to go in fixing his affairs. He would have had to have come back and like turn himself in. They usually have a date, like they'll be like, oh, sir, since you're so rich and connected, you get 3 months to go and sort all your affairs, and then you will come to jail. Yeah, and people were upset about that too. They were kind of like, just throw the guy in jail. He doesn't deserve any of that. And then, like I said, he died. So then they were really like, what the heck? We wanted to see him go and we wanted justice. And of course, probably is too, well, he was in jail. He would have had to have been like paying them. It's hard to do when you're in jail. You make like 25 cents an hour, but that's what would have been going down. So now that he's dead, a lot of the people that got ripped off with this, like, they're not really going to get anything in return. They can't sue him. They can't, so that's the problem with that. He died, the company died, it's over, and now the people who got taken by this company are kind of just having to eat their losses, and they didn't get to see him go to jail. But they got to see his funeral. So, I mean, I guess there's that. I guess. They wanted to drag his corpse. I mean, I think they just wanted to see him, right? Like, go to jail. And like I said, he was supposed to be paying some of it back. That was my understanding, was that, it was up in the air if he was going to be paying back some of the investors. And now that he's dead, there's no way for him to pay it back. Like, it wouldn't have been a lot because, like I said, you don't make a lot of money in jail. But when you owe a lot of money like that, you go to jail, they will take like all of the money that you make. They'll work in jail and they'll take any of the money you make in jail. And then sometimes the government, like this has happened before with things where sometimes the government will like meet the money too to help pay it back, things like that. So now that doesn't even happen. So people just kind of felt kind of crappy about it. They were like, well, he got sentenced and then the end, felt unfinished. Now, this was another one that I had not heard of. I really had not heard this one, probably because it was founded in 1982 and I was not yet born. I was still a nut stain in my mom's drawers. Yeah, ICP. So, yeah, I hadn't heard of this one. This was interesting to me because, like, it started off with a teenager. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. I'm like, oh man, like this kid could have had such a business and a good life, but of course, he had to be a scam artist, basically. So it's called The Best. Best. Try and say that like 10 times fast. You won't be able to. In 1982, 15-year-old Barry Minkow founded a carpet cleaning company, Best, in his family's garage. Now, if the story ended there, that would be fabulous. I would be like, amazing. Good for this kid. Being 15 years old and starting a company from his parents' garage. Awesome, right? But by the time he was 21, he took this company public. Except he kind of lied about 90% of the customers that he had and was taking money from the new investors to pay off the old investors, which of course is a Ponzi scheme. He nearly got away with it too, except they were poised to acquire its biggest rival, which ended up being KeyServe, which would have meant no more scheme and no more fake customers. But he was exposed before the deal was sealed. He was trying to sell them the company, basically. He wanted them to buy the company from him, and they can't because he lied about the customers. They had valued it at $300 million. So he was about to make bank. He was about to give it to these people for about $300 million. Except they were like, hold up. 90% of these customers don't exist. Like, we just tried to go clean Frankie's carpet, and we go to his address, and no Frankie lives there, and they got hardwood floors, sir. What are you trying to pull? It is basically what happened. So it just, within 7 months, just collapsed, right downhill, company gone, bankrupt. I will say, in terms of all of the stories of like scammers in this one to me might partially be due to the fact he was so young. He just did not know business. What 15 to 21-year-old really understands running a company? I'm sure, with the other dudes, I'm like, oh no, they were trying to scam people for sure. With Barry, I'm thinking that he probably wasn't trying to scam people originally. You know what I mean? Of course, he wasn't trying to scam anyone when he was 15. I'm sure he was actually going around cleaning carpets, and he had obviously several customers. I mean, the company was valued at $300 million. So even if he was lying about 90% of the customers, 10%, that would have still been quite a few customers. You know what I mean? Would still had like a few hundred customers that were going to clean the pits. And then I feel like something happened, like with the investors. Maybe he just wasn't making as much money as he thought he would. So then maybe not knowing much, he just kind of started paying investors back with the money that the new investors were giving. I don't feel like he actually fully tried to do a scam here. I feel like this might have been a young dude, didn't know how to run business, was trying to make his way up. Hi, Barbara Ray. Hello. Nice to see you. The Beach Boys. Barbara Ann. Yep, Beach Boys. Beach Boys. But yeah, I don't think that this guy, see, Barbara says, what a shame. And that's how I feel. I feel like with this one, it was just flow. And for some reason, just couldn't. So he was doing whatever he could. Because, I mean, he was 21. He was 21. And, I just feel like out of all of the people that we've been going through, this guy's probably the least. And also, I haven't heard anything about him. Like it's not like after this he went like created another scam or anything like that. We haven't heard yet. I guess give it some time. But no, he's a full adult now. This was like years ago. He was 15 in 1982. I wasn't even born yet. He's like in his 50s now. And again, never ever. No, Abe, I tan. I get like bright brown in the summer. I tan. It's the Italian. It's the Italian in me. Pale, dark hair, big. I actually didn't wear sunscreen to start because I'm gonna get like age spots and shit soon if I don't. Because now I'm old. Yeah, I tan like crazy. I go outside for like 10 minutes, like brown. You'll see. You'll see. I'll show you. You'll see. You'll see in the summertime. I'll come up here. They'll be like, the heck? She's got a huge tan. Everyone will be confused. It'll be great. But yeah, I just feel like poor Barry, not really a scammer. And like I said, we've never heard anything from Barry since. Like, it's not like after this, he went off to go do another Ponzi scheme. He's not Bernie Madoff. The good news is that it didn't really end up in him being like charged or anything. He's just supposed to pay back the investors. That's how it kind of turned out. He was made to pay back anyone that invested in the company, which I'm sure he did. Maybe he had to go work at McDonald's to do so at 21, but hey, better than scamming people. It just makes me sad because I'm like, if this poor kid would have just been like cleaning carpets out of his parents' garage and not tried to like take this company public and sell it to a big rival company and do all this stuff, like, you know what I mean? Then it could have just turned a really great carpet cleaning company. And it would have been a cool story. Like, you know, him being 15, starting it in his parents' garage. That's like Microsoft started in a garage. Like, there's so many people that started in their parents' garage that it's like, oh, that sounds like a great story until you read what happens. And then you're like, oh man, why did he have to fake 90% of the customers and mess that up? Damn it, Barry. Yeah, again, he never scammed anyone else. So I kind of think that, like, I know, see, stay out of the sun. You'll get wrinkles. That's it. I have to, like, put sunscreen on now because I never did as a kid. I never, ever wore sunscreen as a kid. I've only had 2 sunburns my whole life. Both of them were under extreme circumstances. Like, one of them I was in a canoe, and I fell asleep in the canoe, and I didn't have sunscreen on, and I was out on the lake. A silver canoe. That's why I got burned. You know. Well, Jesus, Abe. That's not good. So, 7 of the biggest scams. Now, I have a question, though. See, to me, I was kind of like, the best is on 7 of the biggest scams list? Really? I don't feel like that's one of the biggest scams. It was an interesting story. I enjoyed sharing it, but I feel like, you know, there's bigger scams out there. Listen to Mama. She knows best. Yeah. And we share a name. We're both named Beth. So, you know, it's cool. Cool. So, yeah, those were apparently the 7 biggest scams. Like I said, I feel like we're missing a couple on there. I'm not sure about Zest being one of the top 7, but that was fun to go through. I had a lot of fun doing that. You hate scams and cats. I hate scams, and I am very deathly allergic to cats. I cannot have a cat. I cannot be around a cat. I cannot pet a cat. If I pet a cat, I break out into hives. My daughter was like, Mommy, I want a cat. I was like, Mommy can't have a cat. Why? Because I'm allergic. Oh, you're allergic to cats? Yes. She'll be like, my mommy can't have a cat because she's allergic to cats. So we're not allowed to have a cat at my house. I'm like, no, we can't. We can't have a cat. Never ever had a cat. Although there is a story going around that me and my husband killed a cat. That was interesting. Someone made that up about us. And I was like, dude, like deathly allergic to cats. Like if we got a cat, it would kill me. I would be dead. The cat would be dead. So yeah. So yeah. I think that was fun. We went through 7 of the largest scams. Again, some people were missing. I feel like they missed out on Elizabeth. They missed out on Bernie. Those were big scams. We're going to be looking through those. I want to do like... yeah, no kitties for you either, Joe. Is your wife also allergic to cats? It sucks. I mean, they're cute. I would love to pet one. But when I was a little kid, I was at a summer camp and a cat came over and I pet this cat. And I didn't even know I was allergic because I was like probably, I don't know, like 7 or something. Pet this cat. I ended up touching my face with my hand. And within like minutes, I had hives all over my arm. My eyes were like swelling up. My whole face started swelling up. They were like, ah! They had to take me to the hospital. And then just ever since then, can't go near cats. It was my first time petting a cat. My parents didn't have cats. They didn't have animals. We had birds. But no cats. No. Well, we had a dog when I was like really little, but that dog was gone by the time my sister was born when I was like 4. I remember it a little bit though, but never had a cat, so I didn't even know. So I was like at summer camp and like, cute little kitty, and then like broke out in hives and like my whole face was swollen. Like it's not like we had an EpiPen or anything because we never knew, and it was like, I could just, I feel bad for the camp counselor that day because I've been a camp counselor now and I'm like, oh my God, thank God that didn't happen to me because I would have freaked out. I would have been like, what do we do? What do we do? Jeffrey Dahmer was allergic to cats. That would have been good for some of his victims to know. like, that would have been good. They could have just taken their cats and been like, get away from me. Go, get away. But no. I guess they didn't know that. So I hope everybody is having a fabulous, fabulous Saturday. I spend my Saturdays, other than doing this lovely, lovely live stream, just kind of hanging out with my little one and doing stuff around the house, whatnot. Oh, you get to be a camp counselor? Sherry, you're going to be a camp counselor. Now, I was a church camp counselor. Worked at church camp. And there were drugs. I probably met more druggies at church camp than I did anywhere else. I'm not joking. Me and my friend, once we smoked a J together at our church camp. And yeah, it was a fun time. I worked there for 2 summers. I was a cook the second summer. I was the line cook and a counselor. The Church of Satan. Oh, that's going to be a video. I'm doing a video on that really soon. I actually was writing my script for some of that the other day because I write a lot of scripts for my video, and that's going to be an interesting one. That one, Heaven's Gate, we're going to look into. Abe, Abe. First of all, no, because I already knew my sexuality was bisexual by that time. And secondly, Abe, behave. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing a video on Heaven's Gate really soon because I'm almost done that script. My video about witches is going to be coming out this week. I know I keep saying that, but I'm feeling it this week. I think we're going to do good. I also am lining up an interview with somebody. I want to interview Seiko. Joe knows who I'm talking about. Because she is a modern day witch. And I want to find out more about that and what they believe in and that kind of thing. So my video on witches is not going to be to cancel witches or make fun of witches or be mean to witches. I just find it an interesting concept and to talk about the pseudoscience involved because there is some. And it will be really fun to talk about the Salem witch trials. We got to take a look at that because that's some shit. That's some shit. It will be fun. Yeah, we have a lot of witches. Witches are coming back. They're coming back. Everybody's a witch again. We're doing tarot card readings and all that kind of stuff. And I just find it interesting. He does curses. I had a curse put on me. Same person who said that I kill cats. Put a curse on me. That was fun. You ever had a curse put on you? He scares you? I just laughed. I was like, oh no, not a curse. If you know me, you know I don't believe in any that stuff. I don't. So my internet has sucked today, so I'm really sorry. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if kids were playing around with the box again because that happens sometimes. The teenagers like around here like to go and mess with the boxes, and all day long my internet's been like in and out, like things are like loading slow. So my internet has just sucked today. So I apologize if this has been like wonky in any way. Hopefully that will be fixed by the next time. I, of course, have a video coming out this next week on Monday, video coming out on Wednesday, and then I'm going to try and get my video out on witches probably Thursday because I might have something else planned for Friday. I'll let you know how it goes. Make sure that you guys check out my creepypasta that I posted just because I know some people out here just see my anti-MLM playlist. So make sure you scroll down on my page. You will also see the r/ playlist. You will also see a pseudoscience playlist. We've been having some fun on here. So make sure that you go and check that out because I did a really great creepypasta story with Johnny Silverhand. So you're going to want to go and listen to that. It creeped me out. And I like recorded the thing. And when I was editing, I was like, this is creepy. These are creepy stories. So, you know, you might get a kick out of that. And no matter where you are, what you're doing, I hope that you have a fabulous, fabulous day. Please give the video a like. Think of joining my members. Every bit helps me support my channel as well as goes into a fund. We're going to be getting all that stuff together too. Probably, I want to get that done by my birthday, which is close to the middle of June. So I want to get out the petition really soon for us Canadians to start to get the ball rolling. We're going to start a petition to change the laws about multi-level marketing here. And I'm going to start getting some things together with some people. We want to go down to Parliament. We want to start taking some things down to Parliament. For those that don't know, I'm in not. So I kind of want to get the ball rolling and see if we can change some of the laws here, because I feel like if we change some of the laws here, then that would be a good step in the right direction. And I know that people in the UK have been working on doing it there. I know people in the US have been working on doing it there. I'm one of the only Canadian anti-MLM people out here. So I feel like in Canada, it's all me. I'm the Canadian one. So I guess I got to take over doing this for Canada. So let's go. Let's do that. And the petition, I want to get that out probably beginning of June, I'm thinking. We'll start that up. That way we have the whole summer to collect signatures and everything, and we can look into that. I'm just still working out some of the legalities and stuff because I, of course, have to learn all of that, look into all of that. I pretty much know them all. There's just a couple things that I want to check before we get started, just kind of double checking things and making sure that that's all good to go. So be on the lookout for that. That will be up in the next 2-3 weeks. And I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say. Make sure you watch my community tab for that info. And yeah, other than that, guys, have a fabulous, fabulous day. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.